a lot of times in emotion, we go towards accusation versus understanding why I felt the emotion. We point blame towards the person who you feel like put you in the environment to feel the emotion. But it's the most disconnecting language when you talk about accusations.
Yo, what's good? This is the Mo Mowry Podcast. I'm Tavior Mowry.
I'm Zandy Mowry.
And we are the Mowrys.
Yeah.
Yo, so this particular podcast is going to be around getting back to joy. And this is something that I had learned by way of Zandy and just us being in a relationship. And I feel like it's something that has tremendously impacted my life. And I do believe that like it would be valuable to you as well. And a lot of it has to do with the tools. And I feel like when you have tools, you can build what you need to build. And mastery of those tools just helps you get to a finished product faster. So how would you want to open up about like the getting back to joy? Or like, let's talk about just the emotions in general, like the emotional wheel and all that stuff, or however you would say it.
Yeah. I feel like something that I love about how you learn is you're very like introspective maybe, or you dissect things for what they are instead of just taking it at face value and be like, okay, cool, I'll use that. But you have a lot of whys, but not in like a trying to undercut something, but just in a really trying to understand it way. Like, wait, sorry, repeat that. Why does that work that way? You know, it could be in learning how to make a clock. You know what I mean? Like just trying to understand the pieces and so that I can redo it in a way that's productive. So when I first introduced the emotion wheels, which I had just learned maybe a year or so prior from the Parker family, because they would say things like, I feel shame or I feel fear in like normal everyday life. And I was just like, what is that? Why are you talking that way? You know? And then when they introduced that to me, I introduced it to you. And I remember you had a lot of questions of like, wait, why are we talking about our emotions?
Facts. Little backstory. Your boy was gridlock. Like, I'm talking like crusty old engine, like gears, like creaking when it came to emotion. I just suppressed so much emotion. And like, obviously I'm a very expressive person, but the processing of emotion, meaning like I am receiving or engaging with some kind of situation that is evoking an emotion inside of me, and this emotion needs to be processed so it could pass through me. But I didn't have the tools to process the emotion, and since the emotion couldn't pass through me, the emotion was now making me act and do things because it needed a way to get out. And a lot of the ways that it got out was through actions, whether it be frustration or anger, or even just suppressed anger where it's like, no, I'm fine. Like I'm just shutting down. Exactly. So any emotional talk, I was like, I ain't trying to hear none of that. Like, I'm so good right now. Like, I'm solid. Like, I can keep it pushing. I don't need to have this like feeling talk. Like, what are we talking about?
This is exactly how you used to treat it.
You know what I mean?
I would be like, oh,
and then like, cause like before I understood the value of it and just the impact and the freedom that is on the other side of it, I didn't understand what was going on. But every time Z was talking about emotions, I was just like, I don't want to know about this. Like, why do I feel like this? But now I'm like, Z, like, I feel fear. I feel hurt. I feel sad. I feel angry. And
why do you feel like you fought it so much at the beginning? Because,
like, we as men, and black men more specifically, like, we're not afforded the opportunity or ability to express emotion unless it's like aggression.
And you have played football for a number
of years. And I played football like my whole life, 6 to 22 years old. So like being aggressive and channeling anger was glorified and rewarded, you know what I mean? But to get off the field and talk about like, man, that really hurt my feelings. Like, niggas be like, bro,
but I'm
what?
saying, even you saying it in that voice is not. There's still.
I know, but like that's how I used to hear it. Now when like I'm talking with other dudes and like somebody is legit like going through something and they're being vulnerable with emotion, like I meet them with compassion rather than like, man, why are you being soft right now? We with the homies, like, what are you doing?
Okay, so back up. So we first started dating. I think pretty quickly I was teaching you about emotions because I knew pretty quickly that you didn't have just the tools or emotional language that I had because I had just finished like a year and a half of counseling or something like that. So all of it was super fresh to me and I was excited to apply this stuff, especially to a new relationship. But I started talking to you about the feelings wheel, which is just what I was taught, which is just like your core emotion. And the way that you use it is...
And what are the core emotions?
Ooh, you're testing me off. So let's say anger, shame, guilt, lonely,
sad,
joy. But there's one more. Fear?
Yeah.
I think those are like the same.
It's hurt's not an emotion.
I think it might be on there. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Regardless, the number of the emotions isn't the important part. The most important part is getting back to joy. Yeah. Which is like the choice.
And all of those lead to joy.
All of them lead back to joy.
So the point was you take one of these emotions in a situation, let's say it could be something as small as me in the car with Tave, and then he throws on his brakes and it looks like he's getting ready to hit the car in front of him, but he doesn't. I could say, I feel fear, and then he would have to say,
I get that.
Validate, and then ask questions. So I get that. Why did you feel fear? And then I would say, because it looked like you were getting ready to hit that car. And that diverts a conversation from me being like, why did you almost hit that car? Or like, you can't drive. Like a lot of times in emotion, we go towards accusation versus understanding why I felt the emotion. We point blame towards the person who you feel like put you in the environment to feel the emotion. But it's the most disconnecting language when you talk about accusation. So,
because why? Accusation is what? Or the accuser, like...
You say it because I'm not trying.
You always, like, accusation comes from the devil. Like,
Mom always says accusation is the language of the enemy.
Right. Yeah. So, like, whenever you notice accusation, you experience accusation, or you yourself are accusing somebody of something, like, know that more than likely, like, the enemy is probably close around because, like, just that language is something of, like...
It's talking down to somebody.
Yeah. It's
which goes into identity. So it's like, for you, I can be fully aware that because of a disconnection between me and you, like something that you did made me feel some kind of way. But making me feel some kind of way doesn't change who you are.
Right.
So me saying you are this is talking about identity. Me saying I feel this is talking about an emotion. Yes. And we're able to process from two very different lanes. One is just sorting through whatever we just went through made me feel. And the other one is either like uplifting or tearing down a person. Right. And not just talking about an action. Right. So like having that language completely changes the conversation that we have. So me just knowing that and had learning that from the Parkers, I was trying to implement it into our relationship, and it was tough for you. And like you just explained, because it felt weak. You always kept being like, I don't want to tell you that I feel hurt because
it's a sign of weakness.
Yeah, you kept saying
and that like literally, like, to say I feel hurt or I am hurt, like, it was so difficult for it to leave my lips because that confession in my mind back then was like, by me confessing that I'm hurt, not only am I showing that, like, I've been, like, hit by something, but also that, like, it has done damage to me. And growing up, for me, my pops always used to like, growing up, my dad always used to say, never let people see you sweat. Which is like, pretty much like, don't give anybody the opportunity to see that like something is making you get off kilter or you feel stressed about something, which like is good in certain regards.
Don't be vulnerable. And in a place of like war or something, vulnerability is not a good thing.
Right.
So I feel like that is where he was coming from. Of like, don't show vulnerabilities where people can get in and harm you.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's hard to be vulnerable in general when you're not very secure within your community of people that you're around. And if you aren't in a safe environment to be vulnerable, you never learn the skills to be vulnerable. So me confessing that like I was hurt just felt like not only was like I wounded, but there's also like blood in the water and the sharks is out. And I'm just like, yo, come get me. You know what I mean? That's kind of what it felt like to me.
So I feel like it took, I would say, a year.
I still have a difficult time.
I know, but I'm saying to even get it to where it wasn't.
I can say.
Yeah.
Wait, there'd be times where I'd be like,
Well, I just remember being like I would literally pull out the paper in conversation, like, what do you feel? And you would be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
The first year, it was just me being like, I get, and it probably wasn't necessarily in disagreements. It was just in like life and processing stuff. Yeah. And I was like, what do you feel? And you're like, I don't know. But I do remember we got into a fight one time and I was like, okay, like, well, can you try to tell me how you feel? And you're like, nah, like, I'm not doing that emotion stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, I'm off that.
Yeah, this isn't about that. And I was like, it's about. We're literally talking about how we feel.
Yeah.
But over the course of time, I did see, like I said earlier in the last episode, but like once you get something, you get it. And your why, and you're trying to figure out is like, is this actually something that will benefit me if I accept it as a tool? Right. And so once that clicked for you, I watched it really change the way that you process things and the way you get back to joy more quickly than you did. Because before it took a long time. And the thing is, for me, though I had gotten the tools first, I didn't use them quicker. You know what I mean? It's still a choice. And I hadn't had a history of a lot of vulnerability with people who hadn't known me my entire life. And so seeing like you, and in my mind, you're like the perfect guy, you know what I mean? Like, grew up in my mind then.
Dang, what about now though?
You're perfect to me. Yeah,
alright, for sure. I'm hurt. I feel hurt.
See, and that's a problem too. You used to always
I be taking it and running away.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep pressing the button.
Exactly. You're supposed to say, I get that. Do you remember that? We would literally have to like coach each other through the thing.
Oh yeah. We gotta keep explaining it so they can understand what that means.
But yeah, I didn't know how to choose to use the tools, though I had access to them. So a lot of times if I wanted to say I feel fear, I would be like, I know that if I say I feel fear, he's going to ask why, and then I'm going to have to say, because I feel like, I'm not, it's like an identity thing for me. Like, I don't feel like I'm good enough, you know what I mean? Or I have scars and I have, weaknesses that I don't want him to know about. And if I say I feel fear, he's going to ask, and I'm going to have to show him the scars, So it's still a choice, and it didn't make it any easier to use, but I'm thankful that we chose roads back to joy then, because they built on the ones that we have now, which feel like in higher risk situations we still have tools to get us back to joy, instead of just like spiraling into like we don't like losing control, because we don't have any
technique
over how to literally let our emotions come in and release them.
That's actually when I said technique, like there's that like in exercise or sport or kind of anything that has some kind of technique and fatigue, if both of those components are involved, like when fatigue arrives and is introduced, like the first thing to go from whatever thing you're performing is technique. So like, let's say I'm bench pressing. Like my technique is nice, but like as my stamina decreases, like the technique is the first thing to go. Now I'm just trying to get the bar, you know what I mean? And I think with the repetitions that we've experienced, like as like time has progressed and even the dynamics of our lives has changed, like whether it be us getting engaged, us getting married, us having triumph, having the opportunity to build that muscle of expressing emotion and getting connected and remaining connected has been like a very, very powerful asset, especially when the bullets are flying and like you're saying, the stakes are higher. Not like, it's not like we're boyfriend and girlfriend and it's like, yo, if this doesn't work out, then like,
it is what it
like,
is.
All right, I guess like chalk it up to the game. Now we're married. Now it's like, oh, like we're not going nowhere. You know what I'm saying? And now, not only are we married, but also Triumph is in the picture, in which like he's so discerning and like feels the temperature of the house that like it literally, our connection affects him. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just grateful that we've had that opportunity to build that technique and express emotion.
And I'm grateful that you were willing to learn it. Like I think that I have watched a lot of people forfeit good things because they didn't want to do the work. And I think that, not me a good thing, but just I've watched you navigate through a lot of hard situations and a lot of connection with people where you could have been like, whatever, like I'm going to shut down and just move on. It doesn't bother me, where you've chosen vulnerability and the outcome has been more beautiful than if you would have just pretended like it didn't bother you. But I also know that, like you're saying with the bench pressing thing, starting from zero or close to zero is tough. Yeah. You know, and if do you lay back on the bench press?
You're on your back.
Okay, yeah, you're on your back and you're looking at how many pounds they're putting on. It can just be very intimidating. And you came from a place where you were like more intimidated than open, you know? And then they started adding weights and you did a couple and you're like, okay, that wasn't that bad. The next session they added more weights and you're like, wait, what? Like this isn't that. And I saw you get frustrated at times and it's like, I'm not trying to learn this. Right. You know what I mean? Because I don't care. And then you get back to like, okay, add the weights again. You know, almost like going back by yourself, just with your headphones on and being like, okay, let me try again. And it's benefited our marriage, you as a person, and our son now in ways that like we couldn't be who we are without you being who you are. So I'm thankful that you've taken the time to like learn, and not from me, but from the Lord, because I could give you broken tools at best. Absolutely. Because like I don't know everything. Yeah.
And I think that's a great first off, thank you. I appreciate that. It touches my heart. But like I think that's a great segue. So like what I want to do is I want to first like explain like why we're able to get back to joy, and then do like a real explicit example. Yeah. So that like there's this understanding of like what's really going on. So like we explain the benefits. Yeah. But I just don't want people to be like, just be like, yeah, man, this is great. Yeah. And then be like, all right, like, so like we return back to joy because of Jesus. Like the joy of the Lord is ours because of the sacrifice that was made.
Yeah, and it says the joy of the Lord is our strength. The only reason we're strong enough to do the bench presses is because the Lord. It's His like, joy. It's His, you know, it's His.
Literally. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, despite experiencing different or various emotions, like, we still have that choice to return back to joy, in which like we are all called to function and walk through our lives in that place. And that's like the fullness of life. So like I don't want it to be misconstrued that it's just like, oh, like you do this technique and like you'll get back to joy. It's like, nah, like this is like a process of like, first and foremost, like getting an understanding of like what you're really feeling emotionally. And by being able to identify that emotion and be like, yo, I feel sad. Why do you feel sad? I feel sad because X, Y, Z. I feel seen in that moment, but not only do I feel seen in that moment, but I'm also bringing that emotion before the Lord. Because like in the covenant of marriage, it's not just me and Zandy, you know what I'm saying? It's the three of us. But like I can't give anything to God that like I'm not aware of.
Right.
Like,
and I think sometimes we kind of start at just the most the biggest emotion we see on the list, right? So I could be like, I feel fear.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, why do you feel fear? And you're like, maybe, I don't know, maybe I feel sad, I guess. You're like, okay, well, why do you feel sad? And you're like, well, I feel sad. Well, maybe I feel lonely. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, why do you feel lonely? And you're like, oh, I think it's because I feel like you're gonna leave me. Yeah. So it's not even like we didn't always have the wherewithal to even know the emotion that we felt. But starting the process of trying always leads us back to how we actually feel, which brings us to revelation, which brings you to joy. Because there's a way out when you can identify the thing versus just being stuck in the, I don't know, I just feel crazy today. And I think something that we established that was really cool was, I don't know is a feeling. Yeah. But we had to say that. So it'd be like, what's going on? And you're like, I don't know.
Like, I don't know. I think I would use that because my processing speed isn't necessarily as fast as Zandy. Like, I can't run that diagnostic as fast. So, like, me being like, yo, I don't know how I feel right now was kind of an opportunity for me to connect with Zandy and be like, hey, I desire to be in connection with you, but I don't know what I feel right now. But I also want you to know that, like, despite me not knowing what I feel, I'm still making an effort to remain connected to you. And with the assurance that once I do realize what I'm feeling, like, I'll be back to you to, like, let you know what I'm feeling for real.
You said you wanted to do like
an example?
Yeah, I can't think of any. I mean, we have plenty. I just can't think of one off the top of my head that we.
I feel like,
I think of like a less fresh. You know what I mean?
What's a fresh one?
I mean, all that stuff we just went through.
Which one?
The job at radio station and talking about making decisions by yourself.
Oh, yeah. What's something that I felt shame about?
Feeling.
Okay. Yeah.
Any emotion.
That's good. Okay. So, like, I think one of the residual effects of me not necessarily being familiar with expressing emotion or having emotion is that, like, I used to feel shame that I felt emotion. Like, that's how locked up I was as far as, like, that realm of my soul. You know what I'm saying? That, like, even me feeling an emotion like that made me feel shame because I felt like feeling an emotion was
a weakness.
And
also, it was also like an interesting spiritual perspective because in your mind at the time, you were like, if I am spiritually mature enough, then my faith should be higher than my feelings. Right. Because so if I'm feeling this, that means I don't have enough faith. Right. And I was like, true. No, it's too. It's always bringing back to Jesus and Lazarus where he gets to his tomb and then he starts crying, feeling. He feels sad, like he lost his friend. Yeah. knowing
full well
the God in flesh was getting ready to raise this man from the dead.
Facts.
But there was still a moment where he like cried over it. And I was like, that had nothing to do with his faith. It wasn't like he didn't actually know that he could raise him from the dead. That's why he cried.
Yeah.
It was like in his human experience, death is something worth grieving over. And we have so many, even something not as extreme as death, but a loss of a job or disappointment in a relationship or miscommunication in a marriage. Like that is something worth having a feeling about. And it doesn't always point to a lack of faith. But because that was your paradigm, every emotion was proof that you didn't have enough faith.
Right.
And so it was always this cycle of like, I feel fear that, you know, God's not going to do what he said that he was going to do. But that means that I don't have enough faith. And it's like, actually, it means that walking on water is supernatural. And the fact that you stepped out there and was like, oh my gosh, waves, means that you're a human. You know what I mean? But he gives us opportunity to look at him again.
Right.
But the emotion doesn't always prove that we don't have enough faith.
Yeah.
You know?
That's real.
But I felt like that was what we were like contending with so much is like, how do you hold faith and like spiritual life with God and emotion? Because somewhere along the way, it's taught that like having enough faith in Jesus means you don't have to feel.
Yeah, and that's something that I feel like is actually stifling of
100%.
like spiritual growth.
Literally.
Because it's like, oh, like the emotions, mind, will, emotions, that's the soul.
The soul, yeah.
And it's like, that's cool that your spirit is strong, your spirit man is strong, but like the scarring of your soul can affect your spirit.
100%.
And hyper spiritualizing everything at the expense of like not addressing the wounds of your soul, you're just gonna be kind of stuck. And
it's very lopsided.
Yeah.
It's like those guys who's like, you skip leg day.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like, you're only as strong as your entire body is.
Right.
So like, yes,
all three parts.
Yeah, you can, you know, lift everything with your arms, but like your legs are very small, and that's going to end up prohibiting where you actually want to go.
Right.
So it's like the spirit is perfect in Jesus. We're made solid because he has renewed that. The soul is being sanctified
and renewed every
day. And we have to die to our flesh and submit our soul to the spirit so that we can walk in the perfection that is already ours. But that submission takes acknowledgement of stuff that has happened to our soul, our mind, our will, and our emotions. And that's where counseling comes in. That's where community comes in.
Yeah.
That's where accountability comes in. And that's where being like, I feel fear, you know what I mean? And I feel sad helps us walk through the soul with a spiritual lens and not walk through the world with this like hyper spiritual, like nothing affects me, I can never be touched because Jesus. And it's like, spiritually that's true, but like he said, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world. Right. Which means you're gonna get affected by stuff. Right. So you have to have a safe place to be able to like process. And I'm thankful that over the years, we've been together for 6 years now, that we have become a safe place and are still learning to become, because we were good dating, then we were good engaged, then it was hard, good with marriage, and now it's hard and good in parenting. And it's like, there's always going to be that. Even in doing something like this, it's like doing a new project together. Yeah. It's first time. Yeah. Feelings are going to come up. Yeah. We're going to have to we can talk about that, like even talking about how we wanted to approach talking about. Run it up. Talking about how I'm more like structure, what's the plan? Tavior was like, I want this to feel more like they're in our living room with us. Facts. And we had to go back and forth for a little bit. And there was this tension rising of like, I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. I don't feel, you know what I mean? And when you don't have your needs met, you fight to be heard a little bit more. And in a marriage or in any kind of partnership, that means you're listening a little less when you're fighting to be heard more. And so I feel like in this particular example, it took us using feeling words. I just feel fear that, because I've never done something like this before, for him to click into like, okay,
Yeah.
We're not talking about the person, we're talking about the emotion. Mm-hmm. And then we're able to have like a different conversation.
And that's kind of like the like, hey word is like, whenever I hear I feel this, like, that means that like Bob the Builder dude like needs to go somewhere, because like Zandy doesn't need me to fix something. She needs me to be with her in her emotion, acknowledge what she's experiencing, and just be present with her.
And stay curious. I think that's what we've learned too, is like asking, tell me more about that is not just like a box checking thing. It is getting curious about like, why do you feel lonely right now?
Right.
Like, and 9 times out of 10, you're hearing something or I'm hearing something that neither one of us said. And I'm like, so you feel lonely because you feel like I said I never want to be next to you. And you're like, yes. And I'm like, okay, I get that. That is lonely.
Facts.
I just didn't say that.
I didn't say that.
Yeah.
And then I'm
but my soul told me that you said that.
Yeah.
Because of the undealt with stuff that I had. Not that it's my fault, but it is my responsibility to deal with why my filter is so off.
Yeah.
And why when he says something to me, what about my past history informs that he's saying he doesn't like me, or that he's saying that? Because if I know you and you married me, my natural and pure assumption isn't that you don't like me. So what about my history is telling me that the man that I know stood on the altar with me and said, I'm down forever, is now saying, I don't want to be with you? I'm like, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
So getting back to like, I feel this, get curious. And then once you start hearing something that you didn't say, you can be like, okay, this is on me. Like, right. Not that it's my fault that I hear this way, but it is my responsibility to figure out why I'm hearing
But then,
this way.
Then it's also another like, well, like, it sounds like there's an accusation in there.
What does?
That thought process of like, oh, I know that this person's here for me, that they married me, they're in covenant with me, and they said that they would never leave me. But now there's like this accusatory thought that's being like, oh yeah, he's gonna leave. Like he said that this is what he wants to do, and it's just like the enemy tells on himself
all the time.
If like, and it's like
he runs the same plays.
He literally, like, I'm a huge Madden player, and like this dude runs engage 8 every single play, and it's like, if you know how to throw a bomb, just throw a bomb, because like he'll never cover you.
Now I don't know what that means, but I'm sure that just hit home because I'm not a Madden player.
I'm just saying, like, or even if you're playing Madden, like, I be getting.
It's so. I'm like, just turn the game off then. Like, if it makes you that mad, just turn the game off.
I've never thrown a controller.
No, you're not.
I've never rage quitted a game. I've never punched a hole in a wall.
But he has gotten into bed like this. And I'm like, what happened? Did I do something? He's like, I lost 5 games. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, like, it would be a middle of the night. We'll just do it. I'd be like,
I'm like, oh my gosh. This
is
not real.
That game.
I don't play video games, so I'm sure there's a different emotional investment, but
the thing about Madden is like, yeah, it's a game, but like a lot of it's very like chess like or oriented, and you're running specific plays, and certain plays counter other plays. But when you're playing against someone who runs the same play over and over and over and over again, like, after you discern that they're running the same play over and over again, you start to change the way in which you're approaching that player.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to exploit them because they're one-dimensional.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what the enemy is.
Yeah.
He's one-dimensional, yet we've been given multiple weapons in the spirit to deal with this joker who runs the same play over and over and over again.
And I think that's probably why one of the plays is to get believers to avoid the soul and focus on the spirit, because he knows if he can manipulate the soul, he can eventually conquer the spirit.
Right. But like, at the end of the day, like, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Because like, the Great Commission is to win souls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, within the realm of the soul, the mind, will, and emotion. So like, how you think, that's in the realm of the soul. how you feel is in the realm of the soul. Your actions are in the realm of the soul.
But physically, like your body.
Yeah.
But also, I said conquer the spirit. I didn't mean that in a way that like Jesus can be conquered. I just wanted to say conquer the spirit, meaning if you can be so defeated in the soul that you walk away from the Lord, he feels like he has you.
Or it's more so commandeering the flesh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it's way easier said than done.
Absolutely.
Because we still get caught up.
Absolutely.
And it's not a one and that's the thing that I'm talking about when it's like in the glory to glory, there's also like a spiritual warfare to spiritual warfare. You know what I mean? Like a heightened version of things that you can be attacked with.
Yeah.
And so I think that now being married, now having a kid, now having a responsibility with our words in a new way, now having a band and businesses, like the temptation to let feelings win instead of letting them pass through you, it just gets higher and higher.
Can't afford to.
So you kind of have to go back to the elementary, like bring the paper out, even like hypothetically, and be like, okay, I feel fear right now. And I think like fear and anxiety is kind of like hand in hand. I was never really an anxious person. Like I'm just not anxious.
Anxiety's fear of the future.
Yeah. But more recently I've been like having to renew my mind and having to like speak out loud. Like I think I just feel anxious, you know? And I think it's because I'm not a huge fan of change. I don't run from it, but I'm also not like, what in my life can be changed? And I think as we step into like a new season of following God in a closer way, and there's like a lot of change in the horizon, and not even turning your back towards something, but adding to, like just doing this podcast as being an example, is like there's been a temptation to feel more anxious. And you were asking me today, like, are you good? And I'm like, I am. I just think I feel fear. You know what I mean? I think I feel fear about doing this. I think I feel fear about having hope for a future that's like, I hope, we're doing the right thing. I hope that I'm hoping for the right thing. I hope that what I'm hoping for comes to pass. But if it doesn't, maybe that was a better thing. Like all of those like tug of war of thought and just being tormented is a big word, but it's the beginnings of that where the enemy wants to keep you in the I don't know so that you can just be like fighting against yourself the whole time. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I right? Am I wrong? Because that kind of stuff will drive you insane. And he's like, insanity is, my playing field, so go at it. But I think that is where I have to be more vocal, like kind of in these more present moments with you where I'm like, okay, I think I feel fear.
I get that.
Thanks. And I don't know always that I'm feeling it. I go logical and I go internal. And I kind of control the things that I can control. So one way that looks for me is like cleaning the house, making sure Tri stays on his schedule, making sure the band is taken care of, and making sure dinner is good. Like most times if I'm feeling fear, I lean into control, which most likely just looks like chores. And, I do chores every day, so it's not like anytime you're doing a chore, you're feeling fear. But when I'm like...
It's kind of like a pacifier.
Yeah, exactly. And when I'm doing it fast, you know what I mean? When I'm going from thing to thing to thing to thing, I have noticed recently, I'm like, oh, this is me not slowing down. This is me like trying to control the fear thing.
Do you think it's like trying to avoid being still?
For sure.
Why?
Stillness means I can hear more.
Hear more what though?
Whatever I'm fearing or whatever I'm trying to run from. And when I don't feel like I have the answer to the question that I'm fearful of, I want to run. But I've learned, like, even in the last couple of weeks to, like, journal a little bit more and process. Like, and journaling is something that I've done for years. And I'm always encouraging you, like, have you journaled? You might need it. But for me, it's something that I'm like, dang, like, I watch Triumph all the time. Feel something, express it, and then it passes.
Yeah.
Like, he
I love
great.
him so much.
But he's just like, everything he feels 100%. So it's like,
I don't know where he gets that from.
So if he's happy, he's like laughing from his gut. You know,
he's on 12.
If he's sad, he is devastated. His bottom lip is out, and he is distraught that he can't throw dirt in the house. You know what I mean? But moments later, he'll be laughing again. Yeah. And I've noticed it's because nothing is prohibiting him from actually feeling it. He's not like, that's going to make me feel weak. Or like, I shouldn't feel that happy because what if I'm sad? You know what I mean? I don't want to fall far.
And he's giving himself the opportunity to process it.
Yeah, and so it's like, it's gone as fast as it comes.
Yeah.
Knowing that the next emotion is just around the corner. So it's like, but he's not like fearful of any of it. So I'm also learning from him, like part of my journaling is helping me get back to that posture of like letting it pass through me. But when the stakes feel higher, when you're responsible for a marriage and a child and a business, and, you know, it just feels like big. It feels like too much to process, you know. He's processing like not getting a snack, you know. I'm processing like, what if I'm doing the wrong thing in the band, you know? So I think my fears feel more detrimental maybe. But the God I serve is the same one that Try does. And so I have to remember, like, come to me like a child. You know, like all of this posture stuff is so important when it comes to progressing in life. Yeah. Because joy is a posture. Yeah. Like, it's a fruit of the Spirit. And it's not just a feeling. You know, happiness comes and goes, but joy is supposed to be a foundation. Mm-hmm. Something that's coming out of a place of connection with the Lord. So if I believe that to be true, then the feelings being an emotion is a lesser thing than joy being a foundation. And so the feelings lead me back to the foundation. But when you forget that, the feelings do feel like they control everything. Mm-hmm. So
I feel it. I love it. Yeah. I love you.
You do.
And I love y'all. Thank y'all so much for pulling up on this. It's another episode of Mo Mowry. We'll see you next time. Peace.